The title race really is heating up now. What a game of football. Arsenal might just be bottling this. They might be bottling this. We'll talk about that game first, and then we'll get into the Spurs game and all of the other relegation stuff. But the first 20 minutes, the first half really, I thought Arsenal set up really well. I thought tactically they looked brilliant. They were on the front foot. What you didn't want to see if you were an Arsenal fan from this game was basically the second half. Basically, you're just sitting back and letting City do essentially whatever they want. Let them keep the ball, let them recycle the ball, let them move from side to side. Arsenal could not get out in the second half. But in the first half, I think that was tactically exactly what they should have done, to be honest. They were pressing really, really high. The likes of Odegaard, Rice, Havertz were all pressing so high. And they were getting bodies forward. Every time they had the ball, they were getting bodies forward. And it was kind of man-to-man in some ways. Like Gabriel was following Cherki, where Cherki was even coming deep to get the ball from the centre-backs. And Gabriel was just following him. Wherever he went, it didn't matter. Gabriel was on him. And it kind of worked for the most part. They were good, Arsenal, I thought, in the first half. That was the exact game plan that they should have gone with. But the first big moment was the Gabriel handball shout, really. Well, Arsenal did have a chance before that hit the post and went across the line. Got a bit lucky, really, or unlucky from an Arsenal perspective. But then Gabriel somewhat leans towards the ball. His arms are obviously tucked, but then he does lean towards the ball for this handball shout. And you've seen them given. Honestly, you have seen them given. Maybe it was a little bit too high up on his arm for it to be a definite penalty. And I'm not surprised that VAR didn't overturn the on-field decision, of course, because it has to be a real clear and obvious error. And it probably wasn't, based on it was difficult to know whereabouts on his arm it was if that was too high. But lucky nevertheless. Definitely lucky. And then we got a breakthrough. Rayan Cherki, what a footballer this guy is, man. Every time I watch him, he is such a joy to watch. He just plays football to have fun, doesn't he? He just plays to have fun. That is all he's doing out there. He is just toying with teams, toying with players. His close control in tight areas is second to none. The goal is just stupendous. Bad defending, don't get me wrong, bad defending by Gabriel to let Cherki past, for sure. And there were multiple times, I think Gary Neville said it on commentary, where Cherki is basically one-on-one with Gabriel in the box. Gabriel can do very little at that point. Very little, because he can't go and be aggressive and make a challenge, because he'll just lose a penalty. Cherki will just shift it across from one side of his body to the other, and then he'll give away a penalty. He has to be more proactive at stopping that earlier, because like I say, once Cherki is in the box facing up, squaring up to him, there's not a lot he can do. But the close control, I mean, there's a few players around Cherki. The close control is just outrageous. It really is. He is a serious footballer, and that goal was crazy, an unbelievable goal. And then 2 minutes later, we had Donnarumma with a horrible mistake. And this guy, I said it in one of my videos the other day, he is a very good goalkeeper, but he has shown this season that he has got so many mistakes in him. We know he's not the best on the ball, of course, which is why it's weird that Pep decided he did want him, I guess. Maybe you can turn down that sort of fee for that sort of player, for sure. But on the ball, he's got his limitations, he has. And we did see that. He had all the time in the world. I'm not hearing the notion that the throw-in shouldn't have gone to him. He had all the time in the world. Take a touch, move it on. Whether that's long ball, whether that's short, just take a touch, move it on. Have some urgency. You've seen all for the first half. This was in I don't even know what minute it was in, to be honest, but 17th minute or something like that. You've seen for 17 minutes that Arsenal are pressing high and fast. So you know that as soon as you receive the ball, there's going to be an Arsenal player on you. You know that. You've watched it. You're literally behind everything. You've watched it for 17 minutes. You know that you're going to be pressed. So take a touch, have some urgency and move it on. But he doesn't. And he has seriously got some mistakes in him. I think at the start of the season, he was actually very good. And he made some big saves today. He did. He will always make big saves. That is what he does. But he's shown that he really has got a mistake in him. Balls coming into the box at times as well. For example, against West Ham, the goal that West Ham scored, he could have done so much better with it. There are just the odd moment where he is making costly mistakes. Luckily, this one didn't cost him and the team. But yeah, then moving on to the next part. I mean, O'Reilly. I want to talk about O'Reilly for a little bit, and this is still first half. I'm talking about O'Reilly. Realistically, we'll get on to the second goal in a minute. But for such a tall footballer, a tall player, a rangy player, he has got such good close control. Like, unbelievable. And again, this is before that little, I don't even know what you'd call it, but where he had two defenders around him and he's like knocked it past them somehow. The way he like receives the ball into midfield and then he can turn and drive with it is sensational. He's so hard to pick up because he just drifts around everywhere. He is so good. Just a ridiculous footballer and so technical considering how athletic and physical he is as well. But I do want to say that whilst we're touching on the first half still, Arsenal's setup was great. I really liked Havertz and Odegaard. Now, I've been so critical of Odegaard in the past, and I didn't expect Havertz to start this game, either, or not up front at least. I did expect Gyökeres to start, but I think that Arteta got it right with Odegaard and Havertz. I think those two worked so well together. They were pressing together unbelievably well. And then when Arsenal do get the ball, or did get the ball in those forward areas, I thought they were really good together. Really good. But the second half was such a stark difference. Such a stark difference. And don't get me wrong, everything I'm talking about Arsenal, or everything I'm going to talk about now, in terms of Arsenal in a negative way, is largely due to how good City were in the second half. But Arsenal let it happen. Arsenal still let it happen. City came out and Arsenal just could not get the ball. They couldn't get out at all. There was no press, no high press at all. City were just on them, pushed them so far back. I don't know why. It must have been an injury to Madueke, because Madueke to Martinelli seemed like a really, really weird thing to do. Madueke was doing okay. Not brilliantly, of course, but he was doing okay. But he is just a better footballer than Martinelli. We know this at this point. But City was so on top for the first 20 minutes of that second half. I'm surprised they didn't score earlier than they did, to be honest, because they were so on top. Arsenal then did have a little bit of a period where the chance where, again, there was another small chance, I think it was, and then Eze popped up. It was Havertz, wasn't it? Havertz had a chance where he hit the post, and then Eze popped up in one of those areas on the edge of the box where he always pops up. And again, he hit the post as well. But yeah, that position where Eze picks up the ball and he can just get his shot off, he's fantastic at that. That's exactly where you want him. Some unlucky breaks, of course. And then Haaland gets his first goal in a long time. Now, this was good from Donnarumma, I will say. The distribution was brilliant. He gets it out so fast to O'Reilly, who then picks up the ball, drives with it, as I was mentioning earlier. He's so good at driving with the ball. Brilliant. And then he gets himself into a position where he's so hard to pick up. He takes up such nice inverted spaces where Doku can just pick him out, and then Haaland isn't going to miss from there. I know Haaland hasn't scored in a while, but Haaland is just not missing from there whatsoever. Not a chance he misses that. But the second half for me was mainly Bernardo Silva and Rodri. They pretty much just run the whole game. Mainly Bernardo Silva as well, I'd say. He was defending. He was like last-ditch defending against Havertz when he was one-on-one. Last-ditch defending where he won a header from Gyökeres. He was then just getting on the ball and dictating, just doing whatever he wanted to do with it. Him and Rodri were just playing the game at their pace. And that's where you don't want to be an opposition team against City. When they're winning the game and they've got the likes of Rodri and Bernardo Silva, you're not getting back into that game. You're struggling to get back into that game because they will get on the ball, they will completely dictate the game, and they will do whatever they want with it. And it's very difficult for you to then get a foothold into the game. There was a period where Arsenal did do it though. And towards the end, one thing we'll touch on as well is Gabriel. I think he should have been sent off for that headbutt, I guess it was, on Haaland. Haaland didn't make too much of a meal of it. That shouldn't have anything to do with it though. The fact that Haaland didn't react by throwing himself to the ground shouldn't have any impact on the fact that that's not a red card, because that is a red card. That is just a red card. You can't move your head towards someone like that. Don't get why that wasn't given as a red, to be honest. But the last thing we'll touch on here is that Havertz, that chance right at the end, Trossard has put in a joke of a ball across. What a cross that was. He has put it inch perfectly onto Havertz's head, and he has to get it on target. He just has to get it on target. It's simple. It should be a goal. There is no two ways about it. He should at least get it on target, at least. But all of this means that Arsenal are now 3 points clear, just 3 points. City have obviously got a game in hand, and they play Burnley midweek. If City beat Burnley midweek, what's the goal difference we're looking at here? Okay, well, if City beat Burnley midweek, they can go top quite easily. They can go top. And it's been a long time since Arsenal weren't top of this league. That is going to hurt. But Arsenal did somewhat bottle this. If they came out well, they did come out well in the first half. They just could not replicate it in the second half, and that was the problem for me. They needed to be able to replicate it in the second half, and they couldn't do it. City were just too good. They were too good. And if City continue to perform the way they're performing, it's difficult to see how they lose football games. Given they're not in the Champions League, yes, they've got FA Cup fixtures to deal with, of course, but they're not in the Champions League. They haven't got that to worry about. They will be fully focused on this league and obviously the FA Cup, but that's less fixtures. I can't see how they lose many games from here on out. I just cannot see how they lose many games at all. But moving on to this Spurs-Brighton game, a different kind of bottle, but a bottle nevertheless. Because again, this was a similar story. Spurs look good. And Spurs haven't looked good in a long time. I'm coming at this from a West Ham fan's perspective. If you've watched my videos before, you'll know I'm a West Ham fan. If not, then I am a West Ham fan. But Spurs, for the first time in a long time, there were periods in this game where they looked good. The first half, for example, large parts of it, right up until the goal pretty much, they looked good. They were impressive. I thought they defended well. I thought the midfield setup was so much better that they had Gallagher higher up, and then they had Bissouma and Bentancur. Bissouma and Bentancur both worked really well in that double pivot as such. And Gallagher needs to be higher up. Now, don't get me wrong, Gallagher's still not looking really at the races, I'd say. Not like we've been accustomed to him from Chelsea, Crystal Palace days. But he needs to be higher up. And we saw that he is better when he's higher up. He needs to be the one leading the press. He's got energy to do that. He needs to be the one that can join in attacks rather than picking up the ball from centre-backs. We know that about Gallagher. And that's why he was so much better in this Brighton game. But Brighton are just causing their own problems, man. Just causing their own problems. Like playing out when they just don't need to be playing out like that. They really are causing their own problems, especially against a team where they were pressing them so much. I mean, I guess that is even more a reason to do it, because if you can play through that press, then you're in a great position. But the mistakes are costly, so costly. Just look awful when they're playing out from the back. One player I want to touch on from Spurs as well, Xavi Simons. I thought he had a sensational game. We haven't seen it loads from him since he's joined Spurs. We have seen the odd game where he's just completely taken it and controlled it. But he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant in this game. There was one part where I thought he could have... I think it was when the game was 1-0 and it was a couple minutes after the first goal where I think he hit the post actually. The ball's come into him and he's tried to have a shot and hit the post. Or it might have been a save. I can't actually remember particularly. I think it hit the post though. Kolo Muani is in acres of space free to the right of him. All he needs to do is slot the ball to Kolo Muani and he's pretty much got an open goal. He had to play that. He had to play it to Kolo Muani. And that would have been 2-0. The game would have been so different. I can't see how Brighton would have come back into that game if it was 2-0, to be honest. So I think that was a big mistake from him. But I do think that he did have a sensational game. The assist was great, and then obviously his goal was great, which we'll get on to. But Van de Ven, another player who played really well. I thought he was brilliant defensively, much better defensively than he's been recently. Pedro Porro, again, I thought was really good. There were some really good performances from Spurs. There genuinely was, which as a West Ham fan is obviously quite worrying. Glad they didn't get the win, of course. But there were some good performances from Spurs. Brighton didn't look at it, I don't think. Obviously, Matoma's goal was lovely. Like, what a goal that was. The finish is a joke. The ball from Gross is a joke. And then it was at the point at 2-1 where Van Hecker's playing up front. And he does so well. So well to win that off Danzo. It is a Danzo mistake as such. Danzo does have to clear it. Of course he does. So it is a mistake. But Van Heck does really well to go in and win that. And then pick out Ruta. He could have just flashed that across the box. Or even tried to have a shot himself. But he's picked out Ruta fantastically well. And it's meant that Spurs haven't won this game, which is massive for Spurs and for the teams around them. Huge for them. Absolutely huge. I mean, we know that Leeds are just absolutely fine, I'd say. Like, they beat Man United, looked really good away from home. I didn't expect them to pick up many points away from home. But then just dispatched Wolves as well. Another good result. Like, Leeds aren't going down at this point. Leeds are fine, absolutely fine. And then as a West Ham fan, and for Spurs fans as well, we thought we were getting a bit of hope from Burnley today. Burnley obviously went 1-0 up against Forest, and you thought, okay, I don't want to get, I tweeted in fact, I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want to get my hopes up because Burnley are terrible. But then Morgan gives White a hat-trick. Fair play to him, man. Fair play to him. Fair play to him for that hat-trick. The only goal I've seen was that header. Must have been the last goal. What a joke of a header that is. How he's managed to get so much power and accuracy on that header is incredible. But Forest, again, Forest look good. And this is why it's an issue for Spurs. This is why Spurs needed to win today. I do think that a Spurs win will kind of kick them into gear. I mean, this performance against Brighton may even do that, because they did play well in large parts of the game. They played better than I've seen them play in a long time. And I'm pretty sure Spurs fans are saying the same thing. This is like better than they've been. But if they got that win, this could have kicked them into gear. It could have really given them a bit of urgency, a bit of hope that they can just get, like Wolves next week, for example, they can get a result there. If they could have picked up 2 wins, Brighton and Wolves, they're all of a sudden looking in a good spot. But it just looks tough for them at this point. It does look tough because they're 5 points behind Forest now. Leeds are just gone 8 points behind Leeds. West Ham, obviously, playing tomorrow night, Monday night. I'll be doing a reaction video straight after the game, so stay tuned for that tomorrow evening. But it's a big game for West Ham now. A massive game. The problem with Spurs, I do think that a lot of it gets a bit too emotional. You watch the celebration from Xavi Simons and you thought, this is a bit early for this. Like, if you're a Spurs fan, I was watching it as a West Ham fan, of course, but if you're a Spurs fan, I'd say you're probably watching that and thinking, oh, I mean, so good to have scored a goal in that moment. But the celebration, I think, was a bit premature. That type of celebration, like, it was a really, really exaggerated celebration. And don't get me wrong, like, you can't tell a player, a young player, to not be celebrating that situation, because what he's just done is brilliant. But yeah, I think it's all a bit too emotional for Spurs. It's very, very emotional. Everything is emotional, the ups and the downs during a game. The whole bench went over and celebrated with him, for example. And it was, like the 75th minute or something? There was still like 15 minutes to go. It was as if it was like with 5 minutes to go or something. Which, in that case, you can understand those celebrations. I think it was a bit early in the game for it. But yeah, massive game tomorrow night. West Ham versus Crystal Palace. A Crystal Palace side that has just been out in Florence on the beers. So hopefully they don't care too much, although they actually potentially can be going for Europe at this point. If they get a win, for example, that puts them into what? Well, only one place up, but 12th. But it's all really close there. Really close. I mean, they're 6 points behind Chelsea in 6th. So it's very close. They can get Europe. Maybe they get Europe by winning the Europa Conference League, of course. But they can get Europe from a league spot as well. So they will be up for it. Not necessarily as up for it as they are for their European games, naturally. I mean, as a West Ham fan a few years ago, winning that competition was unbelievable. One of the best days in my life, my footballing fan life. So Crystal Palace focusing their energy on that competition makes complete sense, but they can get Europe. Hopefully, they've got a hangover, metaphorically and kind of literally as well, from that game in Florence. But if we can get a win against Palace, West Ham, that will mean that we've got a 4-point buffer to Spurs, which could be big, because next week they've got Wolves. And you'd maybe expect a win there. So we could really do with this buffer. A big game. Anyway, if you liked the video, make sure you hit like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you're looking out for the West Ham versus Palace reaction video tomorrow evening, because that will be dropping tomorrow evening. Like I say, drop any comments on what you're thinking, what your thoughts were on the games today. But that is all. I will see you in the next one.